Good evening and welcome to the final Inside Government show for the spring 2021 semester here at KU Community College. This is a show that's broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Yes, I did say it is the final show of the semester for Inside Government. We'll talk a little bit about the school forum at the end of this show, but we've consolidated, because of COVID-19, our season. The state has still not, as we're taping this at about 2:30 on Tuesday, the 6th, their budget that was due on Thursday, April 1st at midnight. But one person waiting with bated breath, as well as all of his fellow colleagues in KU County, is our local school superintendent, Jeff PIROZZOLO, who is trying to find out what type of funding they will be receiving from Albany in the budget that we are told within the last couple of hours has seen an increase in $1.4 billion in new spending for education that is above what the governor produced in January. So the budget is also dependent on this local school budget is dependent upon that number. And so while we had hoped to give you a budget update solely today, we'll also be talking about a couple of other items. Most importantly, guess who's going back to 5 days a week of instruction in the classroom, at least for elementary schools, for the first time since the pandemic hit in March 2020, more than a year ago, on April 19th. We will also be getting an update on the naming of Auburn High School over after Harriet Tubman, which we ended the last show on. In fact, I think our guest today is our winner for 3 appearances in 1 semester. Superintendent, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it. I think we should do it monthly.
Monthly? We have a director who just loves that. So he would like you to do 2-hour shows. So that's what he just said.
I think that would be a lot better.
So let's talk about going back to school. So at this point, the district is going to do what?
First of all, we're very excited. I think that was my most animated school messenger call.
It was.
Yes,
it was
I was very excited.
For those who don't know, you do a call to stakeholders, parents, but sometimes it's been, hello Auburn parents, I got to tell you. This one is, hello parents,
yeah, that's
I got to
right.
tell you.
Yeah, and it was great to deliver good news. And, you know, I'm thankful for the health department and all of our local physicians who've gotten together, really researched and gathered information. But speaking with Kathleen that day and finding out that we were going to be able to finally come
Kathleen
back.
Cuddy of the
Kathleen
Health
Cuddy from the Cayuga County Health Department, who they've been fantastic to work with throughout this pandemic. But again, I wanted April 5th to come back full time, but I'll take April 19th.
So we'll talk about what is going back and how they're phasing out. So why couldn't you go back April 5th versus 2 weeks from now?
Again, probably the same logic that I used after New Year's Day, is they wanted to look at that 2-week period after spring break to see if there was going to be any spikes because of the travel.
But some districts are going back this week, aren't they?
They are.
You just felt that the spike because of the Easter holiday?
The health department really wanted to wait that 2-week period just to monitor any spikes. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that there will be no spikes within the next couple of weeks, so it won't push back our starting date of April 19th.
And did you have one of your question was, did you have any notice requirements for your unions that you had to give them any notice on going back?
No. Again, I did meet with Mr. Hurling, who's the ATA president, but again, I made the announcement more to everyone at the same time.
So in doing this, elementary school is going back
5 days a week. Correct.
That is not going to be the case with the junior high next door, but the high school with some exceptions, because you do have seniors back
4 days a week.
4 days a week. So why not the junior and high schools full time yet, or will they go full time?
So our elementary will go back 5 days a week, and the rationale for that is because we also have a remote academy at the elementary level. So
that is still going to stay in place till the end of June.
Correct. Any parent that wants to keep their child remotely until the end of the school year, absolutely can do that. And because we have designated elementary teachers as in the remote academy, those children will still be able to get their education 5 days a week, as will our students that will be in person.
So on the remote academy, I want to jump too far ahead because fall is another 6 months away. Do you still think you'll be doing some remote? If everything stays the way it is, and what you implement on the 19th and until the end of the year, would you think that you will not have remote?
We're hoping not to. We're hoping to be back fully in person. But again, we'll have to figure out what the guidelines are coming down from the state at that point. And hopefully we'll know. Speaking with the Commissioner of Education, because I'm fortunate enough to have monthly conversations with the Commissioner, she told us to plan as if there will be remote learning in September. Again, the hope for all the superintendents is that we'll all be back in person. So we'll hopefully know that information by early summer.
So as I said, you were a frequent guest. The last time you were here, your two biggest concerns kind of funneled from the issue of 6-foot distancing.
Correct.
One was in the classroom, and if you were at 6, but the CDC and the state have said 3 now, and the second one was on busing. So on classrooms, that's not an issue right now.
Correct.
Because I am aware of at least one third grade class yesterday that was already moving their desks. You most likely get a labor filing on that because they were ready to go back and do that. So that issue has been resolved in the classroom. Are you having to buy shields? That was one of your cost concerns at one point.
It was. No, we do not have to have the desk shields. I did purchase 500 of them for staff members, so that if students want to come up to teachers' desks, they can have the shields right on the teacher's desk.
So this would be similar to whether you're at a bank or almost anywhere else out there. So the other issue was busing. So your concern was that you could only use maybe only 20 seats where you most likely may need 30 or so from there. Has that, removing this from 6 to 3, solved that issue as well?
So again, yeah, we in a 66 passenger bus, we could only put 22 students on. We are going to go to 44. We're still not going to go to capacity. And most of our bus rides are 15 minutes or less, but we do have some that are way out that are longer. We will continue to rotate children, so nobody's ever sitting next to anybody for more than 10 minutes. When the bus comes to a stop, of course.
Right. And thank you. And will they have shields in those buses?
No, they will not have shields because that becomes
a safety issue.
A safety issue if they have to exit the bus quickly.
So the other question that comes up for parents right now is the issue of daycare, and that's always been an issue even prior to March of 2020. But many of your elementary schools had a Y program. So that parents could have what I would call, I don't think I'm using the right term, but wraparound care from 3:30, let's say, to 5:30. Will that be ready to go back into school by the 19th as well?
Yes, it will be. Camille Johnson, who's our assistant superintendent for pupil personnel, she is working with the Y, with BTW, and our principals to make sure that, because of COVID, there's limited numbers of students that are allowed in classrooms. So we're making sure that we have that all set up by April 19th. So yes, we're going to continue our after-school programming.
And so any parent who's listening now, how should they take advantage of that?
I would go through their building principal.
Okay. So I want to just quickly talk about, folks, I want to get to money, because the original reason we were going to have you on here was to talk about budget.
Right.
This is the traditional last show we do, which is about your school budget, which is May 18th, if I remember correctly. So so when it comes to fall, we talked about you want to be 5 days a week, and I'm assuming you're thinking junior and high school will be back at 5 days a week at that point too?
Oh yeah, I hope so, yes.
Do you see junior and high school being back to 5 days before the end of this year?
No, because again, we're allowing students to stay remote until the end of the school year. The difference between elementary and high school is the remote academy at the elementary school.
So you don't have that option.
Right. At secondary, it's more self-directed.
And you have capital programs that are in their second summer now, correct?
Correct. This will be the big summer.
So will this have all the air handling systems will be completed by fall? Is that the game plan?
We are going to be working on the 4 elementary schools, and they will be completely renovated this summer. There's going to be a lot of work. So those elementaries, yes, their ventilation systems will get done, and their front openings.
And have you had to upgrade those air handling systems to comply with now what the CDC has said on their, I want to say the federal government, I won't say CDC, but there's been suggestions that you have to have better air handling systems. We've seen it with airlines, we've seen it with others. Is that something that's driven costs for you right now?
Well, our filter system that we currently have really met the specs, so we were okay.
The new specs?
The specs that were sent out, no, our old specs actually met. We could use the same filters that helped prevent COVID from spread. We're going to upgrade them even more, yes.
You are, okay. So do you think you go back to regular sports in the fall?
We're hoping. We're hoping.
So a lot of this is open-ended to seeing if we have a forced surge.
Correct.
What happens with variants and everything from there. So Pfizer, as you know, in the last week has said they have 100% faith in the vaccine for, I think, 15-year-olds and older. Do you see that? You can't mandate right now, currently under the law, a COVID vaccine. You can mandate, you do mandate smallpox and all the others, measles and all that.
Correct.
Do you see the state government intervening or the federal government, because they're the only ones who I'm assuming can, and requiring 15-year-olds and above to have vaccines?
Well, and again, you know, Governor Cuomo put that into law 2 years ago that every child had to have their immunizations. There were no more religious exemptions. Medical exemptions had to come straight from doctors. So this is a trickier one. So again, whether it comes from the state or federal government, they'll be the ones that they'll declare whether you have to have the COVID
so
vaccine.
Unlike
we won't make
a college, and we know many colleges right now, many Ivies are saying basically you will go out and you're either going to be vaccinated, you're not coming back on campus. You don't have that ability right now.
Correct.
So let's talk about money. Good money, first of all, because good money versus unknown money.
Exactly.
So the Biden administration got their bill through last month. Do you have any idea what you're receiving right now?
We're receiving, and this is what we've seen in writing, is $9.8 million.
And of that money, is that going straight to the district, or is it bypassing to go through Albany first?
We do not know.
Because I know in the budget bills right now, the governor had asked that be used for state aid purposes.
Correct.
I'm not wording it correctly, but it would count towards your state aid. The legislature looks at this stage, again, at 2:45 on Tuesday, that is not going to be part of that, correct?
That is correct. We really don't know when we're going to get the money. We don't know if it's a phase-in, a 2 to 3 year phase-in. We do know that.
So you don't think you have to at least spend it by July 1st of 2021?
No, we're thinking.
But that was a worry, though.
Yeah, right. We're thinking it's going to be more of a 3 year phase-in. So we don't know if we're going to get all of the money at one time, or if we will have to show what we're doing for learning loss and how we're going to.
So 20% of this is for learning loss. The rest of that, can that be used to pay for already incurred COVID
cannot.
Expenses?
No, we do not believe so.
Okay, so how do you pay for those shields? You know, 500 shields you bought?
Yeah.
So where's that money come from?
That comes from our general funds. We don't think that we can go backwards with this. It can only go forward. So, you know, we have ideas of how we want to spend it. And again, we can't use this in our regular budget. So this is money that we're getting to address learning loss, maybe to upgrade your facilities for ventilation purposes. But it's really not used. I can't.
So some of this you could be to pay down your debt on your upgrades of your bonds.
We don't know that.
Okay.
That's something that we can definitely check on to save taxpayer money.
So your worry about it going through Albany was in the past when there's been federal aid like this on the first rounds of money last year was that Albany takes a cut.
Yeah, or they take foundation aid away from us and use the COVID relief to sort of just
juggle it.
Yeah, it's that moving shell game.
So as we talk right now, as we said, the legislature, which they normally do, they always add to the governor's number when it comes to education. But this is a big jump. This is $1.4 billion. Do you have any idea how much of that is coming to Auburn?
When we got the initial runs, we lost $480,000, which just added more to our deficit. And again,
So what is your deficit? When you started your budget process, what was your deficit?
As of today, right now, with the numbers that we got with the first aid runs,
so the January number,
we're at $3 million deficit.
Okay. So what do you think? What are your sources telling you Auburn will receive?
Our sources are telling us, again, hopefully we're going to know today or tomorrow, that we should see at least a 2% increase.
And that totals up to what?
A little bit over $1 million, like $1,080,000.
So you're still going to be $2 million short in your gap. So, but this is more than the governor proposed in January. Is it what you were hoping for?
And again, we're hoping to be fully funded. We're hoping to receive the foundation aid that is supposed to be given to Auburn every year, which we're about $6 million off.
So on the foundation aid, in the research I've done, it is not clear. There have been some comments about aid formulas being changed. Do you see them being changed in this budget as of right now?
No, not at all.
So does that mean another year of Auburn campaigning and arguing to change foundation aid?
Correct.
So where are you? So let's get to so this last 20 minutes,
yeah,
we weren't supposed to talk about. So where are you in your budget process right now?
So tonight we have a budget workshop. We have a budget prepared for the Board of Education to review tonight.
Does that take in that $1 million extra?
We have different. We have a $3 million deficit and a $2 million deficit.
So let's hypothetically say you have a $2 million deficit. Does that mean that you have to propose a tax hike?
Right now, our 2%, again, and this is the confusing piece, we know that there's a 2% cap, correct?
Right.
Our 2% tax cap equates to a 2.85% tax levy.
Okay.
So that's as high as we could go. So the board has to make decisions on where they want to go out for a tax increase or if they don't want to go for a tax increase. The confusing piece is that federal money that we're getting, that $9.8 million, we can't use that towards our existing budget right now. So
but even if you could, you would run into the problem next year. You'd have even a bigger deficit.
We'd have a huge cliff. That's correct.
So at this particular point, what if your sources are correct about, and again, this is going to show after your budget workshop tonight, as you're looking at it right now, you see some type, the options are either some type of tax cuts, or a combination thereof.
Correct.
So walk me through if there is, you cannot, if you went to 2.8, would that cover your full deficit?
No. If we went to 2.8, we'd be at about $1.7 million
okay,
deficit.
so at
still.
some point, it looks like you have to make some cuts.
Or use fund balance.
Okay, so how much is your fund balance right now?
Our fund balance, we are actually over the 4% right now.
Okay, so you would, and 4% is the number that the state comptroller and the state government would like you to be no more above, correct?
Correct.
All right, so if you drain down to at least 4, what are you looking at your shortfall?
We would be good.
You'd be good, okay.
We would be good. Okay,
so you're not looking, so at this particular stage, but that would be that you'd have to do the full 2.8.
No, we could go under the 2.8. Our fund balance right now is a little bit over 9%. We had a great rollover, and so what we did is because we knew.
And you talked about this last year about how last month, feels like last year, last month when you talked about the whole idea of some things you don't spend until July, May and June before you get to the July budget.
Right, and so we had a good rollover because, again, we worked with a lot of our vendors and we saved a lot on health insurance because there were most of our doctor's offices and hospitals were closed last year due to COVID. So we took that rollover money and we just stuck it into the fund balance because, again, remember Governor Cuomo was telling us he was going to cut us 20% by December.
Right.
So we had that money saved just in case.
And that money was because you saved that because of what again?
Because of COVID. There were many reasons. We didn't have bus transportation going.
Okay.
So we saved on different vendors that we didn't work with. We did a budget freeze, and in our health insurance, we saved a lot of money because there weren't the surgeries going on, those type of things.
So are you going to have any new spending in the budget as proposed right now?
Yeah, we are looking at creating some new positions.
Are they administrative? Are they educational?
No, they're all educational.
And do you see any areas where you're going to be cutting at this stage?
No, not at this point.
Are there any referendums that are going to be on the budget this year?
Nope, just the budget referendum.
So two last areas I want to cover are you have school board elections as well.
Correct.
How many? It's 3 people are up this year?
Yes, that's correct.
And who are they?
Sam Jean Greco, Kathy Rhodes, and Ian Phillips.
And do you see all 3 incumbents running again?
They have picked up packets along with 3 other people, so we have 6 total.
And so those packets are due, I think, also on the
19th. Yeah.
That's your super day. And that's when your last session of spring sports starts as well. Can start practicing.
Correct. Spring sports will be starting on the 19th
so
as well.
So just go look for you anywhere at that. So petitions are due then. So somebody can still pick up petitions right now.
Correct.
And you have to get, is it still 100 signatures?
No, we only have to get 50 because of the COVID. Yep.
And you're asking the public to go to the polls on May 18th. What time will the polls be open till?
They start open at 7 a.m. and they go till 9 p.m. And you can go to Seward Elementary School, Owasco Elementary School, Auburn Junior High School, or Casey Park Elementary School.
And when you say you can go to those are the ones you're assigned. You can't just pick up any school you wish to go to.
Correct. And if they have any questions, they can always call the administrative office. We can tell them where they need to go.
And can people still register to vote now?
Yes. And the absentee ballots, as you remember last year, everything was mail-in.
Right. And you had a really high turnout. Did you think about doing that again?
It's very costly.
No, I know it's costly.
It's very costly.
But you had one of the highest turnouts you've had in
years.
In decades.
We did. But please remember, there is also a COVID. If you do not want to go in person, you can still pick up the ballot, and they have a COVID. Usually there's other reasons why you can't.
Right.
You're out of town, medical reasons, but COVID is actually added in
You
this
don't have
year.
any of the Georgia restrictions.
Yeah, no, we do not.
So, and you'll give water to people in line?
We'll do whatever we need to.
So, so just to be clear, you can do that, but you're not going to go back to the old system unless mandated by there's a fourth wave.
Correct.
Or
yes.
something
If
like
that ever happened, then we would have to really move quickly.
But do you think that is a way to get voters more involved?
You know, I do, because I think it's easier because everything gets mailed right to you. So I do think it's a lot easier.
Do you remember what the turnout was? Oh. It was high, though.
Oh, it was over double of what we usually have.
So what you normally would get would be 23, 25%. You were closer to half.
Correct.
Okay. So when we ended the last show, and we got a couple of viewer questions attached to this a little bit, but one of the things that you had been asked to do as a district was to rename a high school after Harriet Tubman. And at that point, I think when you were last on the show, you said, well, we have to come up with a naming policy. It has to go to the board, and they will outline a policy. First of all, have they done that?
Yeah, the policy was already created. We just had to really figure out what it stated.
Okay, so what does it state? Is it everything or just one?
So the board can make that decision.
So that's what I'm asking. Has the board made a decision as to what the process will be?
Yes.
For naming. So one of the questions that was before was you could name, if you open this up, this would open all schools other than those that had a covenant. like Casey Park.
Correct. Correct.
It clearly has a identification. So are you just looking, is the Board of Education said we're only looking at Auburn High School, or are you looking at all schools?
They're only looking at Auburn High School. So the next thing they do is they have to open up a date to take in anybody can put in any type of suggestion. So we will open that up. They will have a certain time frame to be able to put in their recommendation. Once we get that part through, then the board will have to choose a committee, and the committee is very specific. It's going to be teachers and students and PTO groups, booster clubs. They will get a committee together to look at what those recommendations are, and then they will have discussion, and then they will bring their recommendation to the Board of Education to vote upon.
And it will be the Board of Education makes that final decision.
Correct.
Versus a public referendum.
If that's how the board decides to do it.
So they can still go to a public.
Oh yeah, they can absolutely do that as well.
And when do you think the board will get to the point where they name a committee?
I think the board, from what I've been told, I think that they want to have discussion either at this next board meeting or the following board meeting to start getting the process really going.
But do you think this process, at least getting a recommendation to the board, can even be completed by your current fiscal year? Because you could have a new board, some new board members.
Yeah, I believe it will be done before the next fiscal year. Yes, because this board is the one that wanted to move forward with it, so they will want to see it to the end. So I think it will be done by June 30th.
So there will be a recommendation.
The committee will have a recommendation to the board before that.
We have about a minute left in time because I'm getting the high sign. Right now, you also have a district diversity task force.
Correct.
And the board is looking at trying to recruit more minority teachers. Where are you in that process?
So our diversity task force, it's sort of twofold. We have a strategic planning committee that meets, that drives our diversity task force. We meet monthly, sometimes bi-monthly, and what we're doing is we're trying to come up with a strategic plan. And part of the strategic plan is to have an executive director of equity and inclusion. So
that would be a new administrative post.
It will be a new administrative. We're doing some reshuffling of our administrative positions, so it won't be an added position. It'll be a restructuring. But that will, hopefully that position will help us with the recruitment of minority candidates.
Is that a challenge for the district right now?
It's a challenge for all school districts.
Okay. So what are do you have rough numbers of what your minority representation as frontline teachers are?
Actually, I do, because I look at this, especially when we present to our diversity task force. Right now, we have 7 minority teachers in our school district. I think total minority employees is around 18. 18
out of how many employees do you?
600.
600. So something that the district is working on?
We're absolutely working on it and trying to put that strategic plan together, which will encompass more than just recruitment of minority candidates. It will be talking about instruction, curriculum, trainings for staff, for students. So we're looking at a big scope.
So I know Chief Butler, Sheriff Skank have sat there. Minority recruitment's a challenge. Are there, and I guess COVID most likely doesn't help this situation, but are there trade fairs where a district can go and try to recruit and people can choose?
Yeah, actually, we have, they're called TRDs, Teacher Recruitment Days, and we usually go to the Rochester, Buffalo, and Cortland areas.
So you're competing against every 780?
Oh, no. They come from all over the country.
Oh.
We have thousands of
so it's not just the 700, 800 districts that are in
It's open
New York.
to every state. So we have representation from every state there.
Okay. Budget again, when can people go vote?
May 18th.
They're voting on the budget, no referendums?
No other referendums. Just board members.
But it's board members and
the budget.
And the budget. So there's no bond ordinances or anything. And the district will, I'm assuming, as they normally do, send out information. You're still in flux right now. We're early, but you're also still in flux because you don't know what the state budget is.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I do want to thank you for your 3 appearances this semester. You've been on because a lot's been going on in the district. But our guest has been Auburn Superintendent of Schools, Jeff PIROZZOLO. I'm going to thank him for giving this budget update and also talking about how they will return. See the smile?
Exciting.
And in classroom instruction 5 days a week on April 19th. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we will be off for a couple of weeks. We'll be back with a Zoom forum with the candidates for the Auburn Large School District on the 27th of the month. I'll moderate the forum, and questions will be asked by Executive Editor Jeremy Boyer. At this point, it looks like we may have 6 candidates, or more. Who knows? A quick programming note before we move on. On Thursday, we had tried to bring you New York State Assemblyman John Lamondes, who was supposed to be here in the studio, but because the state budget had not been adopted that day, we tried to do this by Zoom. And unfortunately, we had some technical issues on both ends, and that show was not able to occur. We hope to bring the Assemblyman back in the fall when our shows return in September. Speaking of that, if you would like to let us know who you would like us to have back in the fall, you can send us your ideas to Inside Government or be on the front page through either snail mail at 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, or by email at cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a safe night and a great tomorrow. We will see you back here in about 3 weeks with the candidates for the Auburn School Board. And we want to thank, as usual, Steve Keeler, Doug Brill, Mike Morano, Jeff Sesniak, as well as all the students here who make this public affairs program work. Have a good night, have a great tomorrow, and be safe.